So perhaps Democrats are truly sincerely trying to preempt a Supreme Court decision overturning Obergefell, which is incredibly unlikely to happen. Now, maybe in 50 years, like what happened with Roe v. Wade, but not anytime soon. But perhaps that's their motivation.
Oh, so okay. Don't worry, gays. You're just gonna keep your rights for a little longer. Maybe in 50 years or so it'll get overturned, LOL. Yeah, dummy, that's the problem. You keep literally just reiterating the problem and then saying it as if it's not the problem. After a lot of thought and experience, I now feel as though my purpose is to sit here and give my takes on politics, or my purpose is to take care of my kids, or be a good husband, or be the provider. Like, we all decide our purposes at the end of the day, and being able to do such is actually better when it comes to, your favorite word, liberty. That's right, because now I'm able to decide how I want to live my life and what kind of purpose ultimately I want to seek without being hassled by some asshole in the sky who apparently hasn't made himself known, doesn't want me to know him, plays favorites and supports slavery, and then says, oh, by the way, I'm the arbiter of morality and I also give you a purpose, so come follow me. No. Today we're going to review a video by Allie Beth Stuckey, or as I like to call her, Allie Beth Sucky. I don't know how I didn't think of that sooner. I actually kind of enjoy reviewing her videos, mainly because she is a little bit more rhetorical than a lot of these right-wingers. Gothics, she's just like, the left bad, spooky conspiracy this, spooky conspiracy that, let's go, Brandon. Where at least Allie Beth Stuckey can phrase her arguments in a way that sound decent. So she's a little bit more interesting to review. This is a 48-minute long video, so there's a very good chance we're not going to watch all of it, but this is called The Conservative Case Against Gay Marriage, and gay marriage is in quotations, so this ought to be fun. Take it away, Allie B. Stuckey.
Hey guys, welcome to Relatable. Happy Thursday. This episode is brought to you by our friends at Good Ranchers. Go to goodranchers.com/Allie. That's goodranchers.com/Allie.
Use sponsor code Allie B. Stuckey has AIDS to get 40% off.
All right, today I want to talk about the Respect for Marriage Act, which fully repeals the Defense of Marriage Act, which defined legal marriage as between one man and one woman. It was passed in 1996 and signed into law by Democrat President Bill Clinton. The House of Representatives.
Okay, what is it called again?
As between one man and one woman. It was passed in the Act, which fully repeals.
What was it?
All right, today I want to talk about the Respect for Marriage Act, which fully.
Yeah, she talks fast because I have the video sped up. Respect for Marriage Act. Abbreviated as RFMA, is a proposed bill in the United States Congress to repeal the Defense of Marriage Act and require the U.S. federal government to recognize the validity of same-sex marriages in the United States. Is that really all it is, or is there anything else that I'm gonna miss here? The Defense of Marriage Act is a United States federal law passed in the 104th United States Congress and signed into law. It amends the federal judicial code to provide that no state, territory, or possession of the United States or Indian tribe shall be required to give effect to any marriage between persons of the same sex under the laws of any other such jurisdiction, or to any right or claim arising from such. Yeah, that's a yikes from me, okay? Because if you're in the land of the free, you should be free enough to get married so long as that person is of legal age and it's consensual. So, yeah, that's fucking bizarre. Respect for Marriage Act just does completely the opposite. It makes it so that the entire U.S. federal government must recognize the validity of same-sex marriages in the United States. That is a great idea. I know that it didn't get far because of the Republican chuds in Congress, but still, great. More freedom. Whoa, yay! I thought you were conservative, Allie. Don't you want more freedom?
The House of Representatives just voted on this Respect for Marriage Act that codifies what is typically referred to as gay marriage. So you will hear me say a few times so-called gay marriage or gay unions or quote-unquote gay marriage. Why do I say that? Well, because I am a Christian and therefore I believe, as many faiths have believed, that marriage was created by God. Therefore, it is defined by God in the beginning.
Okay, so no, you don't get to say because you're a Christian, God defines marriage as one man, one woman, so therefore we shouldn't have legislation that recognizes gay marriage. You are trampling other people's rights with your fucking religion then, not to mention this country is secular and it cannot uphold one religion. So if you don't want people to have equal rights to you because of your religious beliefs, you are arguably violating their constitutional right to get married and not have their right denied on the basis of some religious nonsense that might affect some stupid fucking Christian bimbo at the end of the day. I don't care if you're a Christian. This doesn't matter. This is irrelevant to us.
Beginning pre-civilization, and he created marriage as between one man and one woman. Therefore,
Don't care.
All other forms of so-called marriage are actually illegitimate. They're not, by definition, marriages. They might...
Wait, what? Okay, so you're making up the pretend Christian definition and saying that's actually the real definition? No. Marriage existed before Christianity. Marriage predates Christianity by thousands of years. Oh, shit! Oh, no! Well, are all of those people in the past also illegitimate now because God happened to come along at one specific time to switcheroo the definition? I don't care if your stupid little religion says gay bad. First of all, marriage has predated Christianity by thousands of years, so that's fucking embarrassing for you. Second of all, you don't have to follow Christianity in order to get married. By that logic again, that means atheists can't get married. That's what that means, Allie. You're saying that if you don't believe in God, if you're not a Christian, then you cannot get married. You would probably say, yeah, they can still get married on like a legal setting, but it's an illegitimate marriage because it's not with God involved. If God doesn't put his pee-pee up your butt first, then that's not a real marriage.
Might be civil partnerships, they might be unions that are recognized by the state, that are recognized by the law as marriages, but because marriage actually precedes America and precedes civilization, we do not define marriage as anything other than between one man and one woman. I will probably use
this. When did the first gay marriage take place? A same-sex marriage between the two men in the Galician, this was in Spain, occurred on April 16th, 1061. Wait, are you serious? So, yeah, right around the same time that the Old Testament was being written, you also had gay weddings taking place. So again, you cannot make this. You can't make this claim, Allie.
We do not define marriage as anything other than between...
So yeah, that claim right there. We do not define marriage as... First of all, we can define things the way in which we please, so long as those definitions are ultimately correct, which sounds circular, I know, but definitions are socially constructed. If we all collectively decided that from now on we're going to call cats dogs, then a dog by definition would be what we currently think of as a cat, because we create definitions. So first of all, marriage defined as, or defined in the dictionary currently, is a lawful recognition of two partners. It doesn't even say one man, one woman. Second of all, we have not always defined marriage that way, because as we just demonstrated, dating back thousands upon thousands upon thousands of years in human civilization, there have been gay weddings and gay unions that have taken place. So, cope. I can't believe we're only a minute in and we've debunked every dumb shit thing she said by a quick Google search.
One man and one woman. I will probably use that phrase gay marriage throughout this because that's kind of the colloquial term and we kind of understand what I mean by that, but also know where I'm coming from and what my actual perspective is on that. So why are we even...
So can adoptions take place if they're not married? Can adoptions take place? Okay. A single adult and married couples jointly may adopt? Can you adopt if you and your partner aren't married? California has no marital requirement. Well, in this state, two unmarried people cannot adopt the same child. It sounds like it depends on states. So we know that at least in one state, in Tennessee, you cannot actually adopt unless you're married. So let's keep in mind here what she's saying, because I know this is not only in Tennessee. In fact, I will look up. Utah, for example, does not allow unmarried couples or single individuals to adopt. There's not like a broad thing that says you can't adopt if you are not married, but there are still states that make it that way, which only goes to show that kids that need help in those states won't be able to be adopted by a gay couple who are more likely to adopt, simply because Allie B. Stuckey has now wrongly defined marriage as some kind of a religious bullshit thing, which then, based on her preference, would restrict gay people from getting married. If gay people are not married, then they are not able to obtain the same benefits that accompany straight couples when they are married. They won't be able to adopt in some states. They will not be able to get the same kind of tax breaks. We've heard about the problems with civil unions where they might have their partner dying in the fucking hospital. They can't see them because they're not legally married. There are problems here across the board. This negatively affects gay people across the board. Unless she has some kind of really good argument as to why it's wrong to be gay. Newsflash, she doesn't have a really good argument because there is no good argument for that. Then her argument is completely null. It's void. This is boring right now. All we have is, well, I define marriage by what God said, even though marriage has taken place before Christianity, and gay marriage has also taken place before Christianity and even before when the fucking Old Testament was being written. So I don't know what you want here, lady. Clearly, marriage has not always been defined this way. You are desperate. You are dumb.
Having a Respect for Marriage Act. Why is this going on? So we're going to talk about that. I'm also going to talk about why I believe as conservatives, we shouldn't support the codification of what is referred to as gay marriage. And then, of course, as Christians, but also just from a general secular, nonpartisan perspective, why it's important to maintain and to protect the legitimate traditional definition of marriage as between a man and a woman. I very much understand that this is a controversial position, whether you're...
Yeah, because you're appealing to it being traditional. You realize that I don't care if it's traditional, right? Why do they bring this up as if it's some kind of a big deal? The traditional definition, yeah, sometimes traditions are wrong. You know, at one point it would have been quote unquote traditional to have slavery because it was just like the norm. It would have been considered traditional to have to dress up in a fucking pilgrim outfit to go to church. There are so many aspects of tradition that we now look back on and we're like, oh, wow, that was dumb. Why do we keep doing this dumb thing for so long? Whether it's tradition or not, I don't care. I do not give a shit.
On the left or the right, I understand that I am out of step with the mainstream here, but I mean, that's typical of most of my views. I simply believe what Christians have believed about marriage for thousands of years, what Jews believed about marriage for thousands of years before that, what by common grace, all civilizations, all societies, all nations for all of time have believed about marriage. And that is...
Oh no, she's fucking up right now.
That it is between man and a woman for the purposes of procreation. So
okay. That's not the only definition of marriage throughout history. We just read about gay marriages that took place back in 1000 BC. Not to mention, chat, you bring up a very good point. For a long ass time, marriage was not one man, one woman, as God says, so you may have children. It was so that you could keep relations good. Your daughter, your princess, would marry the fucking prince of the other kingdom. That was also part of marriage for a long, long time. For a while, that was the traditional view of marriage.
Even though my position on this seems radical to us, the reality is the vast majority of even Americans believed what I did just 20 years ago. The majority of Americans, as we'll talk about in a little bit, believed that marriage was between a man and a woman,
But the majority of Americans now support gay marriage and support gay people. Guys, did you know that even less than 100 years ago, a good chunk of Americans actually were in favor of segregation? It's traditional. Why don't we go back? Take me back. Return to tradition, ooh woo. Yeah, but the majority of Americans, or even a good chunk of Americans, don't agree with that nowadays. Yeah, but I mean, less than 100 years ago, they literally did. Right? So what are you going to say to that? Like, yeah, the fact that you need to appeal to the past to say how things used to be demonstrates that we are moving on. We are progressing. The world is getting better in despite of dumb fuck roadblocks like you.
12 years ago. So I may be out of step with where we are today. I am not out of step with most of human history and even most of the world today when it comes to the definition and this perspective on marriage. So why are we even having this conversation? Why are politicians having this conversation when Obergefell passed in 2015 saying the marriage of same-sex couples was a constitutional right? There are probably a few...
Wait, that wasn't a bill that passed. She's talking about the Supreme Court ruling, correct? So this wasn't a bill, this was a Supreme Court decision. And that's the exact problem, is because this was a decision made by the Supreme Court, that means that ultimately this decision could be changed by another Supreme Court, by updated Supreme Court justices. That is why they even wanted to have the Respect for Marriage Act to begin with, is because you have Clarence fucking Thomas saying that we should re-examine the decision made when it comes to same-sex marriage. Because there is that possibility that it could be overturned or overdone if you get a really conservative Supreme Court, That is why they wanted the Protect Marriage Act. That's why. This is so cut and dry. But I don't know, man. I'm taken aback, okay? I take it back. She's not rhetorically effective. She's just incredibly annoying.
Speaker of the House, Nancy Pelosi, said this, quote, "This legislation guarantees that no married couple can be denied equal protection under federal law. This is really very important," she says, "from tax provisions to Social Security benefits and more, even if the court were to erase marriage freedom, God forbid." So there are probably two reasons.
Base Nancy Pelosi? Wow.
Why Democrats are pushing this right now. You might think it's kind of random. One, they may legitimately think that the Supreme Court will overturn Obergefell, which, as I just mentioned, declared marriage between two men or two women a constitutional right. That could be one.
No, it's not that we're just randomly thinking this, because unlike you conservatives, we don't just imagine something spooky and then start crying about it. Do you not remember when the motherfucking Clarence Thomas said that he wants to re-examine it? Do you not remember when Ted Cruz was saying that it should be done away with? She's like, if I just ignore that part of things, then this will make a lot of sense. She's almost just trusting her audience to not be informed enough.
Reason, because of what Justice Thomas said in his concurring opinion on Dobbs. Now, Justice Alito, who wrote the majority opinion for Dobbs, which was the decision that overturned Roe at the end of June, explicitly said that the decision to declare abortion not a constitutional right should not be interpreted as calling into question other decisions like those on birth control or same-sex unions. But Justice Thomas, in his concurring opinion, said this, quote, "We should reconsider all of the court's substantive due process precedents, including Griswold, Lawrence, and Obergefell." Griswold guaranteed the right of married couples to obtain birth control. Lawrence ruled anti-sodomy laws unconstitutional. Now, Thomas is not saying in his concurring opinion whether he agrees morally with birth control or sodomy or gay unions. He's not even saying that these things shouldn't be legal. That's not what he's arguing in his opinion. He is disagreeing with the court's idea of substantive due process, which served as the basis for not just these three cases, but also for Roe. So you can go back.
No, this was built upon the 14th Amendment. And the 14th Amendment guarantees the right to liberty and life to all American citizens. Marriage falls under that category. Not to mention there's also the Equal Protection Clause, which is also in the 14th Amendment, and makes it so that if a state is giving marriage licenses to straight couples, they can't just deny it to gay couples, because they need to treat virtually everybody as much as the same as possible. Even if she was correct, this means nothing. What this means is that we now have a Supreme Court that if they decide that they disagree with the substantive due process or whatever the fuck that means, then all of a sudden, well, they could just get rid of gay marriage one day. That's the problem. That's what we want done away with. That's why we want the Protect Marriage Act.
So perhaps Democrats are truly, sincerely trying to preempt a Supreme Court decision overturning Obergefell, which is incredibly unlikely to happen. Now, maybe in 50 years, like what happened with Roe v. Wade, but not anytime soon. But perhaps that's their motivation.
Oh, so okay. Don't worry, gays. You're just going to keep your rights for a little longer. Maybe in 50 years or so it'll get overturned, LOL. Yeah, dummy. That's the fucking problem. You keep literally just reiterating the problem and then saying it as if it's not the problem.
But here's another likely reason, and that is to make Republicans vote on it before the midterms in November. Democrats want to show that the entire movement, or they want to try to prove that the entire movement that conservatives have been forging against gender identity indoctrination in schools and drag queen story hour and men and girls bathrooms are really just hating the gays. That's what they want everyone to think. And that conservatives are in cahoots or are a part of, this far right movement along with the Supreme Court to control people and to establish a Christian nationalist fascist theocracy. Their buzzword for this election cycle, if you haven't known.
Aren't you the one who is literally right now arguing that the institution of marriage, which is currently a state institution, should actually be on the basis of religion? You just said, according to your definition, that institution might be giving legal marriages out to people, but they are not actually legitimate marriages because they don't abide by your Christian standards. That sounds like a Christian theocracy. Yes, to a large extent. You're talking about getting rid of certain institutions, overruling them, and reinstating institutions that make decisions on the basis of religion. That is what you are advocating for. And then she tries to make fun of the lefties who say the Christian nation thing. Some lefties get a little too out of hand with it, sure, but there are definitely people who are in favor of Christian nationalism, and they are pushing loud and proud for this. Even Marjorie Taylor Greene has repeatedly advocated for Christian nationalism. You can't just close your eyes, put your hands over your ears, and start screaming like, I have AIDS, I can't hear you, haha, I have AIDS. Like, after a while, you have to face reality, honey. And the reality is that conservatives right now are not just anti-gay, but they are waging a war against the normalization of LGBT individuals, whether falsely calling it gender indoctrination in schools, when in reality it's just teaching kids one of the many facts of life, like sex and gender is different from sex. Then you say drag queen story hour. These are like fringe events that have taken place at this point. I don't even support them, and you can be wholly against those things while still supporting gay people, LGBT people, and so on. They're drag queens. They're not even necessarily LGBT. So you are unironically in 8 minutes demonstrating every fucking thing that you're trying to claim the left is lying about being afraid about.
Noticed is freedom. Nancy Pelosi said it in the quote that I just read a couple minutes ago.
Yeah.
Gavin Newsom is running.
It is freedom. Yes, Miss Conservative. Don't you want more freedom?
Ads in Florida trying to get California's defectors to move back, saying that they're the party in the state of freedom. Do you think, this is just an aside, just a little parenthetical part here, like, do you think that you're actually going to make people forget why they left California? Because much of California is an overtaxed, crime-ridden, tyrannical hellscape overflowing with drugs and homelessness. People are not forgetting that as they are relaxing on Miami Beach. As usual.
So, can you explain to me how this is exclusively the fault of the Democrats? Like, you realize that all major cities, for the most part, are ran by Democrats, right? I think there are a couple cities that are run by Republicans. And then if you look at those cities also don't do well because it's a city. In cities, you are going to have more homelessness, more drugs, more crime. That's one of the effects of a city. So even when you try to place the blame on, like, the Democrat-run cities, LOL, that too is fucking desperate. You're desperate, Allie.
When Democrats use this word freedom in their ads and in their tweets, this is their buzzword going into the midterms, they actually mean the exact opposite of what they say.
Really?
So when they say freedom, they mean tyranny. When they say democracy, they mean authoritarianism that they like. When they say authoritarianism, they mean democracy that they don't like. And the Dobbs decision...
Really? Could you give any example of this, please?
Is a great example of that. The Obergefell decision is a great example of that. So the Dobbs decision said, this decision should be placed in the hands of the people of the states, should be decided democratically. And the left is calling that authoritarianism, Handmaid's Tale, far-right fascist extremism, when in reality, the Roe decision was far more authoritarian, banning states from, and their voters from banning abortion if they wanted to. But the left's vision of democracy...
I'm about to get canceled because I partially agree with that take, actually. It's true that Roe v. Wade, I wouldn't go as far as calling it authoritarian. Authoritarianism, at least the way in which that I usually best perceive it, is if you have usurped the necessary systems and processes in play to instead enact some kind of broad authority or put yourself in a position above law. That's usually authoritarianism. None of this is authoritarianism. However, it is true that the Roe v. Wade decision originally was built on very shaky grounds. If you look at the 14th Amendment, it doesn't seem as though they actually had the legal justification. This is why even Ruth Bader Ginsburg was saying that the Supreme Court decision was wrong.
Democracy is actually where all of their wishes are pushed through and dissent is silenced. That's why they support Obergefell, even though Obergefell was undemocratic. The decision of marriage should have been...
What? Hold on. Undemocratic. Oh my God, you are so fucking stupid. It's the Supreme Court. Every Supreme Court decision is undemocratic by your logic. Oh, I'm coping. I'm soying out, guys. Okay? You vote for the president, Allie. This is why we're a democratic republic. Okay? You vote for a fucking president. That president then has the power to put certain justices in the Supreme Court. That is the democratic process. Are you seriously trying to suggest now that every Supreme Court decision ever made is just wrong because it wasn't democratic? I thought this girl was going to be a little bit smart, but this is fucking stupid.
Left to the states. It should have been decided democratically. This is also why this kind of...
What do you mean democratically? No, this is why we have Supreme Court, for example. They should be able to remove as much bias from themselves as possible to critically examine the law and the Constitution and see how certain behavior holds up to that. Do you think if you put the vote up to the people, that black people should be equal to white people, that would have been elected democratically? I don't think so. But Instead, you had the fucking Supreme Court that looked over the law and also looked over the newer amendments that had now been added that said, according to this constitutional amendment, it is crystal clear that anybody living in America deserves equal treatment regardless of their skin color. That is the law, so therefore this is the decision that has been made. Because we need to stay true to the Constitution. That wasn't like a democratic thing, Allie. Do you think that it should have just been left up to the people? All the fucking hillbilly, racist, white rednecks could go out and be like, ain't no black person sitting next to me on the bus. Hell to the no, yo. You're deluding yourself.
Subversive, opposite interpretation of the words that they use, like democracy and authoritarian and freedom. It's also why you saw so many articles about how, and, news segments about how Elon Musk's commitment to free speech on Twitter would have been a threat to democracy. Free speech, they think, is a threat to democracy. It's because they mean the opposite of what they say, and you're hoping that they don't notice. It's the same.
Wait, did they ever actually say this? Did anybody say that Elon Musk would be... So this came from Elizabeth Warren. Elon Musk is a threat to our democracy, cries Elizabeth Warren as she works to undermine it. Okay, this is an opinion piece, clearly. One billionaire whose estimated net worth has gotten about 10 times larger since the start of the pandemic is about to have the power to decide how millions of people can communicate with each other. It's dangerous for our democracy to have so much power in so few hands. She never said that it was a threat to democracy because of free speech. She said that it could be dangerous for democracy to have so much power in so few hands. How can you not even get, like, your quotes correct, you know? Like, if you had said, like, I think people are exaggerating this, acting like it's going to be danger to democracy, how relevant is Twitter to our democracy really? Like, even an argument like that would have been better than lying about what she said. She didn't have a problem with free speech. Nothing to do with that. It was about one billionaire having so much power condensed and consolidated in his hands.
Thing that they do with abortion. Abortion is healthcare. Okay, well, no, because healthcare doesn't include purposely, intentionally killing an innocent person, right? So they always mean the exact opposite of what they say. They're hoping that you don't think about it. They're hoping that you don't notice. So when...
Really? What about all the conservatives and the Republicans that claim to be pro-life, and then when you look around at their policies, they don't actually give a fuck about life. All they care about is the life of a fetus. And the minute that sucker pops out of the uterus, they don't give a shit anymore. What about that? What about how Republicans have consistently voted down the increasing school lunches for poor kids? They have increasingly shot down welfare, which helps people climb out of poverty and helps people that are disadvantaged and starving, or at the very least, struggling to have adequate meals. That's pretty pro-life right there. And you guys are against it. You also are not in favor of the life of children who need to be adopted, because you would rather say gay people icky and bad and spooky, even if it's at the expense of literal fucking disabled kids, who has now been demonstrated that disabled children are more likely to be adopted by LGBT parents. You're against that. So what about when you guys claim to be pro-life? I mean, that's kind of funny, right?
Democrats say that they are for freedom and Republicans are not. They're not actually telling the truth. It's not that Democrats who are for child drag shows or teachers teaching kindergartners how to be non-binary, or for abortion through all 9 months, or for illegal immigrants living here on the taxpayer's dime, or for violent criminals being released from...
Illegal immigrants are not living here on the tax dollar's dime. Illegal immigrants empirically have been demonstrated repeatedly to pay more into social services than they take out. There was $100 billion in surplus generated by undocumented immigrants in the Social Security program. It's funny because it's a lot of the older people that shit hardest on immigrants, on illegal immigrants. They're stealing our damn jobs. No, Grandpa, they're keeping you on fucking life support. Shut the fuck up. It's because of the illegal immigrants that we have way more being paid into Social Security. Congratulations, Pop. You're able to go buy your fucking 60 laxatives every fucking day because of the illegal immigrants. I don't want to hear any griping about them stealing the jobs. $35.1 billion was the surplus generated by undocumented immigrants in the Medicare Trust Fund from 2000 to 2011. There's been a 48% decline in U.S. violent crime rate from 1990 to 2013, a time when the undocumented population tripled. Undocumented immigrants in 2018, their employment rate was 95.8%. I don't know why you would want to get rid of those people when they're benefiting us. They're paying more. They are not making us pay for them. According to the New American Economy, undocumented immigrants contributed $13 billion into the Social Security funds in 2016 and $3 billion to Medicare. 3 years prior, the chief of the Social Security Administration wrote a report that estimated undocumented immigrants contribute $12 billion into Social Security.
From jail. It's not that they support these things because they are for liberty, like max amounts of liberty, as we define liberty. They're actually just pro-chaos, specifically pro-moral chaos. Pro, in many cases, outright.
How is letting illegal immigrants enter the country and stimulate our economy like moral chaos? Now, don't get me wrong. There should be a process to legalize people. How is illegal immigrants coming here like moral chaos? How is accepting gay people moral chaos?
That they support these things because they are for liberty, like max amounts of liberty, as we define liberty. They're actually just pro-chaos, specifically pro-moral chaos. Pro, in many cases, outright immorality. So we know that they're not interested in what we think.
Like what? I like the vagary. Conservatives do really, really well with vague language, and they almost weaponize it to the degree of they just want moral chaos, you know? What does that mean? Anywho, so not only do they want moral chaos, they also condone immoral actions. Oh, like what? So anyway, illegal immigrants are bad. Like, can you answer the question? Can you give an example? No, instead it's just going on these fucking tirades. You should bring her on, then she could answer your questions. I would love that. That would be great.
Think of when we think of liberty. They shut down businesses, forced masks, forced vaccines, closed schools, kept family members from their...
Liberty, defined as the state of being free within society from oppressive restrictions imposed by authority on one's way of life, behavior, or political views. So let's talk a little bit here. First of all, you being against gay people having the right to marry is you being against liberty by the very definition of it, because you are saying that they should have restrictions imposed on them, which are oppressive on the basis of their way of life, the way that they live their life, or on their behavior. First, there's that. Let's make that crystal clear. She hates fucking liberty so long as liberty is being extended to gay people. Second of all, when it came to the pandemic and shutting down businesses, yeah, sure. There were some liberties that were suspended at the time. Yep. Yeah, absolutely. I don't give a shit, because ultimately the government has a right. It is not authoritarian or dictatorial. The state government has a right to enact lockdowns. They have a right to enact social distancing or vaccine mandates. The 10th Amendment of the Constitution delegates powers that are not given to the federal government to the states. The federal government cannot nationwide mandate vaccines or social distancing or lockdowns, but individual states can. So if they've done that, you can be whining and screeching about my liberty. There's nothing authoritarian here. There's nothing dictatorial. They were literally just using the power that they already had, that they were granted by the Constitution, to do the best thing they possibly could in response to a fucking outbreak. That's it. So sure, maybe liberty was like temporarily suspended or restricted to some degree. That was a necessary evil in that case, because it wasn't being restricted because you're a conservative. Ooh, yucky. It was being restricted for everybody based on the states and their rights with the 10th Amendment. So still just sounds like you're coping.
From visiting their loved ones in nursing homes and in hospitals without any scientific...
Allie, come on. We all know that you have no loved ones and that nobody loves you. Let's not pretend, okay?
Evidence that this was helping. They're constantly fighting against speech they don't like online. They use every legal tool at their disposal to ruin the lives of people who pray on football fields or refuse to sell wedding cakes to gay couples or people who defend themselves against violent criminals.
Wait, pray on the football field? I'm pretty sure that was about complications regarding the mixing of religion and the state. So no, that's nothing to do with free speech. Second of all, you supported Donald Trump, who actually threatened to take legal advantage and was trying to take every legal avenue he possibly could to silence negative reporting on him from the media. So there's that. That's a little fucking weird. Also, Donald Trump said that people who burned the American flag should be locked up in prison, which is a violation of their First Amendment rights to protest this country, and it violates their rights to freedom of speech. So first and foremost, it doesn't mean that her point she made here is wrong, and I'll explain why it was wrong in a moment. But Allie, you are in no position to talk about this without looking like a massive two-faced fucking dunce, okay? Because you supported the guy that unironically was against freedom of speech. Saying that a bakery not baking a cake for a gay couple is bad, or being upset about that, that's not free speech. That's about whether or not businesses have the right to discriminate against other people on the basis of their sexuality. I think that's stupid as fuck. If you have a business, then that means you must abide by the Civil Rights Act. You cannot discriminate on the basis of immutable characteristics. So if somebody comes in and says, "Hi, we're getting married and my husband's name is Steve. Can you write, happy wedding, Gary and Steve on the top?" And you're like, "No, I don't do the gays over here, okay? Why don't you go down to Rainbow Central for your fucking little cake, okay? You don't get to do that. You don't. And you don't get to invoke your religion to discriminate against other people on the basis of immutable characteristics. You don't. If somebody walked in and said, I want you to make a cake that says, I'm a Nazi on it, and they said no, that's okay. Being a Nazi is not an immutable characteristic, unless we're talking about somebody like Nick Fuentes. So you're not actually discriminating against somebody in that case on the basis of anything that would otherwise violate the Civil Rights Act. So this is just a massive cope. Huge cope. I wonder how she would react if she walked into a bakery and said, yeah, I would like to get a big cake that says Jesus has risen. It's for my church group. And the bakery was atheist and was like, yeah, no, we don't do religious folk around here. Okay. Nah, you can go down to Christ Cakes down the street, bitch. How do you think she would react? Probably get on here, make a 2-hour-long video where she was unironically sobbing about the Christian censorship. This is such a stupid argument.
They're incredibly intolerant of dissent and of personal liberty. But to be fair,
what do you mean by dissent? Because yes, in order for there to be a net amount of tolerance, you sometimes have to be intolerant towards other forms of intolerance. I know it's super paradoxical and sounds so fucking spooky, but if you sit down and try to use your noodle, that's your brain, then I think it's pretty easy to figure out. If you are being tolerant of somebody like a neo-Nazi, and you're just like, you know what, I'm tolerant, so I'm going to just let them keep on talking, keep on saying their bullshit, eventually there will be more neo-Nazis and more neo-Nazis. And eventually they will get to a point where, since they are intolerant and they are being tolerated, they will then enact their intolerance to lower everyone else's freedoms. It will lead to a less tolerant world if we are tolerant of some of the intolerant. Hopefully I explained it to you okay.
And this is all building the argument and helping us understand why conservatives should be for protecting traditional, legitimate marriage. So to be fair, it is also true that conservatives are against the freedom to do some things. That is also true. We are against the freedom to abort your baby. Because we believe in the baby's freedom and the right to live. We are against...
So are you against... wait, are you in favor of other people's freedoms to not get sick and live? So that they don't need to come near like some unvaccinated freak or some weirdo that's too scared to wear a mask? I wonder if she would apply this. And yeah, I know, legitimate marriage. Honey, have you seen your husband recently? You ain't in a legitimate marriage either.
The freedom to mutilate a minor's body because they decided one day that they're the opposite sex. We are against the freedom to murder, to steal, to assault, etc. We believe in law.
Wait, we too are against the freedom to murder and assault and to steal. Yes. Do you think that like freedom means you can do literally everything? I can't believe that police officer told me I can't drive with my dick hanging out the window. I thought this was America, not communist Russia. Like, yeah, everybody knows that there's some limits to quote unquote freedom. Yes, we know. Just like you don't have the freedom to drive drunk because you impose on other people's freedom to drive their car and live their lives and not get killed by a fucking drunk driver.
Laws. We believe in governance. We believe in order. Conservatives and liberals fundamentally...
Yeah, but how much order? Because if you believe in order as the number one end all, then you, by definition, cannot then support freedom. Because if there is freedom, there can never be total order.
Disagree, though, on what freedom is and what rights are because we disagree on where rights and morality and truth come from. The left, in general, replaces God with government. The government creates rights, which means these can be given and taken away and changed as those in charge see fit.
Nobody is saying the government is God. Why? I'm just not even going to respond to this one. Yep, she got me, guys. Now that I'm a liberal who loves the soy, when I get down on 2 knees and put my hair up and get ready to pray, then I always close my eyes and I say, Dear government, Biden, if you can hear this prayer, please, may your kingdom come. May your will be done on earth as it is in the White House. Please, Jesus Biden, and to the what is it, Virgin Mary? Virgin Kamala Harris, please hear me. Yep, she figured it out.
Politically expedient for them, according to their ideology, or according to which way the social winds are blowing. The right, in general, is supposed to believe that the government is subservient to God. We believe, as the founders outlined in the Declaration of Independence, that we were created by God.
No, what are you fucking talking about? The government is subservient to the people. There's nothing in the actual Constitution that says that it's subservient to God. America was supposed to be a secular nation, Allie. America's a secular nation. See, this is the thing. You're like, oh, those pesky lefties always saying that we want to make America into a fucking theocracy, but have I mentioned that the government should be subservient to God? Is it supposed to be like, shh, everybody hush, okay? Trump is in the Oval Office saying prayer. He's going to hear from God today. And he comes out and is like, God told me to build the wall. God told me to deport all the raping Mexicans. Like, what are you fucking talking about? This is the exact issue. Is one, there's no consensus on God. Two, we have no way of knowing what God actually has said or what God actually wants because we've never fucking heard from him. Instead, all we hear are people saying what they think God said. And last and certainly not least, the government is subservient to the people. We control the government. That is what makes America so unique, or at least what did make America so unique when it was first founded. This subservient to God thing is complete fucking crap. America is a secular nation.
And we're endowed with certain inalienable rights from him, among them being life, liberty, and the pursuit of property. That does not mean that every right in the Bill of Rights is found explicitly in Scripture, although some, like the right to due process, are, but that...
So the same exact bullshit again. Well, God said we all have rights, so that's where the government did it, haha. No, they believed in Judeo-Christian values as literally everybody in the fucking world believed in some form of a God or the divine. It was way more common back then. But furthermore, you can believe that while also being incorrect. Lastly, you can also get to that same conclusion without God. We are all equal and we all deserve certain inalienable rights because that is what leads to the best outcomes for everybody in a society. Not to mention, we have evolved to be social creatures, and part of evolution is wanting to see our species and our DNA continue and propagate. And we don't just mean in the sense of reproduction, but also in the sense of generally, we want our social environment to be better and to be safer. And we do not want to live in a world or in a society where there are not inalienable rights recognized, where people are able to say, yeah, but you know, you really like ice cream, and that kind of creeps me out, so you no longer have the right to freedom of speech, okay? Anytime I hear you talking about dairy, or I catch you in the fucking dairy aisle, you're gonna get hung, okay? I don't want to live in a world like that, or in a society like that. There are evolutionary reasons why we have these beliefs and understandings. You can reach those beliefs and understandings through actual rational thought, which, mind you, is far superior than, well, some ancient book said all people equal, so herder, because no, the fucking book doesn't actually say that all people are equal, according to you. Because you don't even think that marriage should be equal for gay people, because of your fucking book. And last but not least, you can also reach those conclusions by believing a lie. I say this all the time, but if I believe that aliens originally created us so that we all have intrinsic value, well, then I would probably want to do a lot of good for humans. And that is good, but that belief is false, and it is baseless. And you can still also get to those same results without believing in aliens that created humans.
The rights that we see listed there were determined to fall under the umbrella of the inalienable rights of life, liberty, and the pursuit of property. Because God, the supreme authority, has given individuals these inalienable rights, and therefore the government did not create them and therefore cannot take them away arbitrarily.
So people make this kind of a argument a lot to me when I bring up the secular morality. Couldn't I just say the same thing to her? So, Allie, what happens if somebody doesn't believe in God? What happens if you're like me, you know, like a dirty, sickening heathen who loves partying in hell? What are you going to do then? You know, I don't believe in God. I guess I don't think that humans actually have value or intrinsic worth. Cool. Finally. I can go get my fucking chainsaw. I mean, shit, did I say that without being muted? But seriously, like, what would you say to that, I wonder? Because that is the worst and weakest way of reaching this conclusion. What do you think would be more convincing to somebody who's never heard of Christianity? A, hey, dude, you share a society with a lot of other people. So when you act in a way that treats humans with the same value that you want to be treated with as well, then that makes all of society better. So if you're walking down the street and you see somebody with a bike and you really want that bike, you might think it's in your best interest to steal that bike, but it's not, because just like you don't want your things stolen, that person doesn't want their things stolen. Maybe you're going to steal their bike, you know? Maybe you steal that person's bike. Now this person isn't able to ride their bike to work. Then they lose their job. Next thing they know, they are living in poverty. More poverty means more crime. More crime means more of a risk to your individual health. There are downstream effects. We all share this society. So when we act in a way that puts humans' best interests at the top and the positive outcomes as our end goal, then we can reach these exact same conclusions, and we can reach them by actually thinking about it, going through the rational process. Meanwhile, what if you said, I know you have never heard of Christianity, but listen, okay? There's a God. He's very big. He made you. Believe it or not, he did. He's also everywhere and nowhere at the same time, so don't bother trying to figure out like where exactly he is or how to find him. And God says that you need to be nice to people and treat people with intrinsic value, okay? And if you don't do that, then you're going to go to fucking hell. Do you want to go to hell? Do you want to burn in the pit? I'm not talking about a mosh pit, honey. I'm talking about the goddamn fire hell pit. Do you want that? Is that what you want? I didn't think so. So be nice. Like, that doesn't go as far. If people are acting in ways out of fear, that is not as positive. That is not even as moral as if people are acting in ways because they genuinely understand why they should be acting in good ways towards other humans.
That is why we believe in the right to self-governance. That is the basis of this concept of self-governance. That doesn't mean that there's no official government. That doesn't mean that there are no laws. It means that our elected officials are supposed to be beholden to us and beholden to the Constitution, beholden to the Bill of Rights. These things acknowledge that our rights come from God, who is our authority. He gave these rights to us. He says what is and what isn't, what's right and what's wrong, what's good and what's bad.
Okay, yeah, we get it. Like, that's very surface level. My question always goes to why? Why does God say this thing is bad? Why does God not say this thing is bad? Why does God say it's an abomination for two men to be together, allegedly, but yet condone slavery? Help me understand, please. This is such a boring surface level thing. Well, because God says so. Okay, so according to you, God says marriage between one man, one woman. We now know that by restricting gay people's rights to get married, we are, one, violating the Constitution, which is the foundational documentation that has made this country the way it is and set America up to be one of the greatest countries in the world. That's one thing happening. You're disregarding our literal fucking American foundation. You're also refusing to let people get married, which means that they will have a harder time in certain states from adopting children. If gay people are not able to adopt children, that means that more children will be in the foster care system. They will be at higher risk of sexual abuse, drug abuse, addiction, homelessness, every bad thing you can think of. A child in a foster care system is pretty much just more at risk of it. And you are forcing that upon countless children by restricting gay people's rights to adopt. Furthermore, LGBT individuals are more likely to adopt disabled kids because kids that are disabled obviously have a more challenging time getting adopted. And last but not least, restricting gay people's rights to get married just leads to pretty much a net negative. A net negative. That's it. I don't want to live in a world where maybe one day my marriage could be decided to be illegitimate and then destroyed. I don't want that kind of a world. So why would God say that it's bad to be gay? Or why would God essentially or allegedly make it, at least according to these chuckle fucks, that it's immoral to allow gay marriage? Why? Why is it that when we don't follow God, we have positive outcomes on society? The world is a better place. But yet when we follow God, the world is worse. More kids starve, more kids are orphaned, and all of America has disregarded the Constitution. How does this add up? That's what I want to know. Why would it be that God would restrict something that has now been shown to make the world a better place, but God would also condone something like slavery, which we now know is immoral and has made the world a worse place? Why? And her answer most likely would be, well, because he's God, and he's the foundation of morality, so whatever God says is moral is moral. One, that means you have no morality whatsoever, because that means your morality could flip on a dime if suddenly you feel as though God has told you to go kill somebody, or murder the gays, or protest against the gays, maybe hold up a big sign that says God hates F slurs. All of that to you is now moral because you feel like God said so. You have no morality because you have not reached your moral conclusion via rational means. You are dogmatically and blindly following some supposed entity. And second of all, if God is the foundation of morality and he has outlawed and allowed some things that, although to us in our small mortal minds seems to not make sense, well, God, since he's God, knows the big picture. Then why the fuck should I follow God? if I can't even understand the actions that God is taking, if I can't even look to God for an actual example as to how to behave or as to what is and isn't moral, then why would I follow that God? Why? It's useless to me. That means God's behavior, God's actions, what God says is useless to me. Because if I can't even wrap my head around why I should do that, then we're right back on square one, which is, oh, you just got to have faith, you know? Close your eyes, plug your ears, say la, la, la really loudly, and then just whatever God says, you got to do it, okay? Don't think twice about it, honey. All right, we're only going to go through a little bit more of this video because I can't, there's no way in hell I'm taking 48 minutes to do this.
Isn't what's right and what's wrong, what's good and what's bad. And if rights come from God, as our declaration declares, that means that truth and morality come from God too, because what are rights except for an application of truth and morality? The only way God has the authority to give us rights is because he is the creator of those things, the creator of those rights. He is the arbiter of what is true and false. He is the arbiter of what is right and wrong.
Okay, so she's actually just proven my point. That would absolutely be the response that she would then take. Oh, he's the arbiter of it all. Okay, so that means morality could change on a dime if God so wishes. Your morality could change on a dime if God so wishes, or if you think that God has changed morality. So you have no real objective morality. In fact, it sounds incredibly subjective. And we also know that if we can't understand what God is doing because he's just too powerful and we can't possibly wrap our small little minds around it, then it is useless to us. And I have no idea why we would want to follow that God.
So the security of our rights in the United States depends on this belief that there is an authority that transcends our government, that gives us rights that cannot be arbitrarily taken away by the government. And the stability of this type of governance depends on a common agreement by man that our consciences are bound to God, or at the very least, a higher authority than us. The founders believed that there was a higher authority. Sometimes they called it providence. Sometimes they called it a creator. They didn't.
Yeah, that's because a lot of founders were actually deists. They weren't Christians necessarily.
Necessarily all agree exactly theologically on how to interpret scripture. Today, that is not the debate that we're having. We're debating whether there is a God or not, whether there is a higher moral authority than the government or not, whether human beings are just accidental, purposeless clumps of matter, or whether we are...
Why do they always go with this?
Individuals created by God in his image and given certain rights. That's why we are so...
Wait, okay, let's say that you're right, that we were created by God. How does that help me find my purpose? What does that mean? What is my purpose then? Okay, I've been made by God. So are you going to tell me that like my purpose is to worship God? I was created for nothing but serving another being? Because that seems like a pretty nasty ass thing. Why would I want to be created? Why would I want my purpose to be worship God? Worship Sky Daddy? Fuck no. I'm not worshiping the pro-slavery God, okay? I'm not doing that. So I don't know how saying, oh, well, God made us helps with our purpose. Like, they get so triggered when you say this, but at the end of the day, we all decide our purpose. We have all decided it. Everybody right here, every Christian has decided their purpose. They've decided that one of my big purposes is going to be going to church and following God. That's not your only purpose. You have other purposes. I think another purpose that you would probably say is, I have a purpose to take care of my children. So how the hell is saying God answering for the purpose question? We weren't here necessarily like accidentally, more so randomly. This randomly occurred, and now we are here. I'm grateful that random things happened the way that they did so that I can now be here and now live and breathe and talk politics. I also get to pick my purpose. Isn't that better? Wouldn't you want to pick your own purpose? Wouldn't you want to sit down and say, you know what? After a lot of thought and experience, I now feel as though my purpose is to sit here and give my takes on politics, or my purpose is to take care of my kids, or be a good husband, or be the provider. Like, we all decide our purposes at the end of the day, and being able to do such is actually better when it comes to, oh, your favorite word, liberty. That's right, because now I'm able to decide how I want to live my life and what kind of purpose ultimately I want to seek without being hassled by some fucking asshole in the sky who apparently hasn't made himself known, doesn't want me to know him, plays favorites and supports slavery, and then says, oh, by the way, I'm the arbiter of morality and I also give you a purpose, so come follow me. No.
Made only for a moral and religious people, it is wholly inadequate to the government. This is why John Adams said, is because they're actually being governed by a transcendent moral authority.
And then, we're actually being governed by a transcendent moral being or whatever the fuck. Huh? So how do you explain when people in America do bad things then? Was the guy that raped and murdered 4 women was he being governed by God? And if the answer is no, then we're not actually all being governed by God. How does that happen with free will? What does this mean? Also, yeah, sorry to break it to you, Allie, but you know what? If the government was gone and then all of a sudden there was a huge turmoil and we were like, these people deserve rights. No, these people. I don't think fucking God is going to step down from his kingdom, his throne, and say, okay, listen up here, okay? All of you people can get rights. And for these people, if you like butt stuff, you're out, okay? No rights for you. Thank you. I got to get back to giving some poor kids in Africa more AIDS, so you guys have fun with this. Ciao. The second ascension. God's not going to fix shit, okay? So even if I was going to take your position here in the most literal fucking sense,
being a man half as good as you, Hunter.
Then that doesn't actually mean anything.
You'll hear people say things like, no, murder is illegal because it's common sense. No, it's not. It's not common sense to most people in the world, to most governments in the world today or throughout history. Murder is illegal because of the idea that people are made in God's image, and that is the basis of Western civilization. And it is the man.
No, it's. Oh man, we're like, yeah, should we murder or not? Well, I was going to, but I went to church and found out that actually God made this guy. So nope. I'm sorry, but if you're gonna go out like murdering people, if you don't believe in God, then I am very scared for you. And Christopher Hitchens actually made this great point. Do you think that if they ever found Jesus's body, what would happen if they actually found Jesus Christ's body, right? They were like, it is now as conclusive as possible that these are the remains of a man who was known as Jesus of Nazareth from this time period, yada, yada, yada. Would we all just like suddenly stop caring about each other? Would I like read that online and be like, oh, God is dead? Finally! I can enact the purge. Yeah. This is not how this works, okay? You justify the fact that you already believe that murder is wrong because of biological reasons, and you stick Christianity on it as the explainer.
Manifestation of that belief that has led to true liberation and equality, like the emancipation of slaves. Everywhere in the world has had slavery. Unfortunately, still, most places in the world, or many places in the world today, do have slavery. It is because of the manifestation of the gospel, the manifestation of the Christian belief that all people are made in God's image and therefore have equal rights, that led Western civilization, and specifically the United States, to obliterate slavery.
Massive cope. Huge cope. Wow. No, actually, the Bible has a fuck ton of verses supporting slavery, and the Bible was used as justification for slavery. So much of early American Christian identity is predicted on a pro-slavery theology. From the naming of the slave ships to who sponsored some of these journeys, including some churches, to the fact that so much of early American religious rhetoric is deeply intertwined with slaveholding. Abolitionists tried to make arguments against using the Bible to justify slavery, but they were in the minority. They were considered to be radical, and often they were considered to be infidels, because how could they say God was opposed to slavery if it was so obvious in the Bible that he was not? Oh, shit. Slaveholding was not only justified, but also moral because it was recognized as such in Holy Scripture. Slavery's defenders relied on this literal reading as a response to the emphasis upon the principles of Christianity used by those opposed to slavery, and that this authority is the essential veracity of God, that since there can be no prescription against the authority of God, what even is declared in any part of the Holy Bible to be lawful or illicit must be essentially so in its own nature. However repugnant such declaration may be to the current opinions of men during any period of time. Damn, this sounds a lot like the exact same arguments that Allie Beth Stuckey is making to try and say that being gay is bad, or that gay marriage isn't allowed. That the supreme lawgiver and judge of man, God, is infinitely just and wise in all decisions, and is essentially irresponsible for the reasons of his conduct in the moral government of the world. So it is culpably audacious in us to question the veracity of any of those decisions merely because we do not apprehend the ability to understand. Okay, so same exact argument, right? Notice how this is what I've said is a huge problem. It was that very fact that contributed to Christians being okay with slavery. That if one or more decisions of the written word of God sanction the rectitude of any human acquisitions, for instance, the acquisition of a servant by inheritance or purchase, whoever believes that the written word of God is verity itself must consequently believe in the absolute rectitude of slaveholding. Another one bites the dust. All right, Allie, I'm done with you. You're too annoying and I hate you, so goodbye.